Good Tvach, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us. Saba, what's the name?
I am Yisrael ben Fred Adasa.
Chaim Yisrael ben Fred Adasa. We learn, sponsored by Abi Spry, sponsoring this Masechta for Nachas from his whole family. By Ed Saleh from London, Joshua Rosenberg, Yaakov Umansky with a Kursa Toiv, to the Rav and the Zoom family, and Nachas from children and grandchildren. Baruch Ian Leili Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther Bas Gittel, Avram ben Shmuel HaKayin, Shalom Fogel Leili Nishmas Rabbi Yaakov Zeb and Rabbi Yudaya, Ma'as Rivka Bas Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, Ma'as Sivya Miriam Bas Rabbi God, and Rabbi Yosef ben Siyam ben Rabbi Yaakov Zev. Mark Frankel asks us to learn for, what's the name again, Mark? Nachum Pesach Ben Zion? Shlomo Pesach Ben Zion. We are joined by A.B. Spry and Aaron Swade and Ben Zion Cohn, Eddie Chazan, Saba, Menachem Umansky, Dr. Guy, Stephen Holtzman, Mo Kushner, Mark Frankel, Yitzi Fuchs, Berish, Mel Zachter, Nachman Chapler, who gets a Mazel Tov on an Einikel, Mazel Tov, Michal, Dr. Black, Moshe Lehman, Irving Fishbaum, Chaim Braun, Abe Arbach, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Ilya Shutman, David Helfgott on Kol Lashon, and we are holding on Lamed Aleph, Amid Aleph, the top line. So here what happens is Eddie says that the land belonged to my ancestors. And Mark says that the land belonged to his ancestors. Eddie brought witnesses that it belonged to his ancestors. And what did Mark do? And Mark brought a raya that he used it 3 years uninterruptedly. So the Gemara tells us, Amar Rabbah says, why would Mark lie? Why would Mark lie? He could have said he bought it from Eddie. Amar Rabbah Malay L'Shakar, if he wants, he could have said, Minoch Zavente, I bought it from you. Yeah, Eddie, you had it in your property from the pilgrims. But so what? I bought it from you, and I have it for 3 years, and I don't have to keep the paper. So, Malay L'Shaka, why would Mark have to lie and say it belonged to his ancestors? If he wanted to, Amalei Minoch Zavante, he could have said, I bought it from you, V'achalte Shnei Chazaka. So, therefore, Rabbah says, award it to Mark. It's a slam dunk. Amalei Abai says, you can't award it to Mark. Mali l'shaka b'mokam edom lo yamrinan. Mark says it belonged to his ancestors. Eddie has Edom that it belongs to his ancestors. All Mark has is a Malay l'shaka. Migu is not stronger than 2 Edom. So Amalei Abaya, Mali l'shaka b'mokam edom lo yamrinan. So Hadar Amalei, so then Mark changed his tune. Because Abaya had a very good argument. So Mark now changes his tune. He whistles with a different tune. And he says, you know what? I concede. In Da'avasechi, it was Eddie's ancestors. V'zavinta minach, and I bought it from you. Why did I say it's my ancestors? And that which I said that it's my ancestors, Desamachli Allah, I'm confident that it's mine, as if it kedavasi, as if it was in my rishus for many generations. I mean that's how I feel confident, because I bought it from you and I had it for 3 years. Now that If that was his original claim that he bought it from Eddie, it would have been a slam dunk that he would have gotten it because he has a chazaka, 3 years, he doesn't have to keep the paper anymore. But here, Mark is switching his story. Now he's not, of course if he switched his story entirely, then we wouldn't listen to him, because Kevin Shehigit Shoveina Chayzer Magid. You can't switch your story. But here Mark is reinterpreting what he said. So the Gemara says, is that good? Tayin v'chayzer v'tayin, can he make a taina and then, reinterpret his taina? Ayin tayin v'chayzer v'tayin. No, you can't do that. No backsies, Mark. Ula amar tayin v'chayzer v'tayin. The Ula says Mark could explain, this is what I meant. Nardoyim, right? The Nardoyim, however, say ain't a tayin v'chayzer v'tayin. Now, Umayda Ula, who says that Mark could switch his story. Ula admits, if Mark was more verbal, it's mine and not your ancestors, Eddie, that can't be reinterpreted. Because then he can't say, no, really it's Eddie's. He said emphatically that it's not Eddie's ancestors. And in a case where if he was in the court, he didn't say anything. Then he went outside and he got lunch. And after he came from outside, now he switches his story, then nobody will believe him. That ain't a chayz of v'toin. Why? My time, we say that when he went outside, they taught him, you better say a different claim. My time, Tanase Agmare. They taught him to say a more believable and credible and successful claim. Umodu Nardai, the Nardai admit, even though they say that normally Mark can't change his story. If Mark said initially, if he says, he didn't say that Eddie, they were yours. Initially he said he had 3 years chazaka. And then he says, listen, it was my ancestors that brought it from your ancestors. So here, that was what he originally said. He originally said that it was my ancestors, right? So now he's saying, yeah, it was my ancestors that bought it from your ancestors. That everybody agrees is okay. The chayz of v'tayin. The heicha de mishtay mile avroi. If, let's say, they were talking outside, and Mark never said anything about it. He never said that, he never said this explanation that what I meant is that it's by me as strong as as if it was my ancestors. And then when he came inside, he says it. The fact that he didn't say it outside, that's meaningless. The chayz of v'tayin. Then he could elaborate when he comes inside the court, because that's the way litigants work. They don't show their full hand when they're outside. My time, they don't say their full hand. Amra Meimer, Anon Nardo Ano. I am from Nardo, and even though the Nardoi said that Mark cannot reinterpret what he meant, Visvirally, but I hold that initially Mark said it was my ancestors. And now he says, no, I don't mean that it was my ancestors, but I mean it's as I was confident with it as if it was my ancestors, because I had it for 3 years and I didn't have to keep the paper. The tayin v'chayz of a tayin, that he could reinterpret what he meant. The hilchasa, and the law is taka tayin v'chayz of a tayin. The law is on Mark's side, and that he could reinterpret what he meant, and even though originally he said it was my ancestors, Eddie said it was my ancestors, and Mark just had 3 years chazaka, so even though he had a migu that he could have said that I bought it from Eddie, but migu is not enough connected Eddie's edim. However, he could reinterpret when he said he didn't mean it was his ancestors. He meant that he bought it from Eddie, and it was as secure by him as if it was his ancestors, and that's acceptable. Welcome everyone, as we see Gedalia is joining us over here. Rabbi Kranz has joined us, and I think since I made the announcements, Moshe Lehman has stepped in with our 27 Zoomers here so far. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Wonderful to spend the beginning of the week with everybody, just getting underway on a beautiful...
Rabbi, where are we up to?
We are now on Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, and we are holding by the 2 dots, 7 lines from the bottom. Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, 2 dots, 7 lines from the bottom. So here again, we have sparring over here, Eddie Chazan and Mark. Zay Mishal Avaisai, V'zay Mishal Avaisai. Eddie says it belonged to my ancestors, and Mark said, no, it's my ancestors. So in this case, Mark brought witnesses, unlike the other case where he didn't have witnesses. Here Mark brought witnesses that was his ancestors, but Mark also has, he also used it for 3 years. And Eddie has witnesses that he used it for 3 years, but he has no witnesses that it belonged to his ancestors. So let's get the case over here again. What happened over here is Mark one-ups Eddie this time. Mark one-ups Eddie while Eddie has witnesses that he used it uninterruptedly for 3 years. Eddie has no witnesses that it belonged to his ancestors. Mark, on the other hand, he has witnesses that he used it 3 years, and that he also belonged to his ancestors. So the Gemara seems to say that, well, again, Mark should have the upper hand. Each one has witnesses that they had it for 3 years, so they should cancel each other out. And then Mark has witnesses that he was the Marikama, that it belonged to his ancestors. So that's what Rav Nachman says. It's Mark's night. Rav Nachman, uki achila lebahadi achila. Put one chazak against the other chazak, cancel them out. And then v'uki ara b'cheskes avasa, since Mark has witnesses that it belonged to his ancestors, so therefore it should go to Mark. However, Rava says, you have to understand, the same witnesses that said that Mark used it for 3 years are the witnesses that said that it belonged to Mark's parents. It belongs to Mark's grandparents, all the way back to the Mayflower. And since that's the case, once we canceled them out, because they said that Mark had a chazaka, while other witnesses said that Eddie had a chazaka, so one of them is lying. So since they might be liars, we can't believe them in what they say, that it belonged to his ancestors. And that's what the Gemara says. Amalei Rava, ha'edus mecheshesi. This is contradicting testimony, and contradicting testimony, since maybe Mark's witnesses are lying, we can't believe anything that they say. So we're back to square one. Amalei, he said, it doesn't work that way. Nehei de iskachesh b'achilasa, even though they were contradicted about the 3 years of chazaka, ba'avosam yiskachesh, they weren't contradicted when they said it belonged to Mark's parents. So that part we could believe them. Now this gets to the question, very simple question. If, let's say, Irving and Rabbi Kranz testify in court that they saw a murder on Monday, and at the same time Yitz and Berish say that there was no murder on Monday. They were there and there was no murder at that time. Can these guys testify in another case? Or do we say, since they're contradicting witnesses, that they have a question mark on their credibility and they can't testify anywhere else? So the Gemara says that's an old machlokes. So lema Rabba v'Rav Nachman, but pluk the Rav Huna Rav Chisda kamifligi. Let's say Rav and Rav Nachman argue with the machlokes of Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Ditmar beis kite edim hamachishes zu ezu. Two witnesses that contradict one another. Rav Huna says even though Berish and Yitz contradict Rabbi Kranz and Irving, zu ba b'fnei atzmo me'ida. Irving and Rabbi Kranz could testify something else elsewhere. Rav Chisda says no. Since there's a question mark, one of these two sets are lying. So Bahadi Shakre with these Sadi Shakre with these questionable lying witnesses, Lamali, why would we ever accept them anywhere else? So Lema Rav Nachman the Amar Rav Huna. Rav Nachman, who says that we accept the testimony of the witnesses who say that Mark, it belonged to Mark's ancestors, so that means that he holds like Rav Huna, like Rav Nachman Rav Huna, that we accept Rabbi Kranz and Irving to testify elsewhere. V'Rava Rav Chisda, and Rava holds like Rav Chisda, that since they're questionable lying witnesses, how can you trust them? So the Gemara says, according to Rav Chisda, everybody will hold that since they are contradicted about the chazaka, we won't believe them about that it belongs to his ancestors, and we're back to square one. Ki pligi alib de Rav Huna. Rav Huna says that we accept Rabbi Kranz and Irving elsewhere. So Rav Nachman Rav Huna. Rav Nachman holds like Rav Huna. Rava says, yeah, we'll accept them by another case. But in the same case, we won't accept them. Rava adkan like come Rav Huna el eidus acheris, for another case. But for this, since they might be lying about this case, because they say that Mark has the chazaka, but other witnesses say that Eddie has the chazaka. So since they might be lying in this case, then loy hadar aisi, then loy, then we don't believe them about the ancestry. So what happens over here? What happens? What happens now is Eddie goes ahead. Remember, Rav Nachman was the one that says we would reward it to Mark, because Mark had witnesses that it was his ancestors. So according to Rav Nachman, we rewarded it to Mark. Now the plot thickens. Eddie goes ahead, Eddie goes ahead and brings witnesses that it was his ancestors. So now they're on equal footing. Now each one has witnesses that there was a chazaka and it was their ancestors. So Amar Rav Nachman, Ananach Sine, we had first awarded it to Mark, but now Anan Maskinan, like now we're again at a tie. Each one has witnesses that it was his ancestors and his chazaka. So Anon Maskinon, like, now we're going to remove mark from the property, and the fact that Bezdin looks wishy-washy, first they say it is marks, then they say it's not marks, and l'zeilusa debate dina for the disgrace of the court, like Haishina. We're not worried about that. We're not worried that the court will look wishy-washy. As we welcome in David Rosenberg for our 29th Zoomer of the evening. We also have Douglas Jablon joining us and Mel Grossman joining us. Welcome as well. So says the Gemara, are we not worried about Zelusa the Beidina? We're not worried about the reputation of the court. We're not worried about that. Most of Rabbi Yisem Reb Zira. Shnayim Ayim Meis. Here we have Irving and Rabbi Kranz said that that Chaya's husband died. Ushnayim Ayim Meis. And Yitz and Beres say he did not die. Shnayim Ayim Nizgasha. Rabbi Kranz and Irving said that she's divorced. Ushnayim Ayim Lo Nizgasha. And Yitz and Beres say she didn't get divorced. So here, since it's a deadlock, then we shtel the Chaya on her Chazaka. Chazaka is she's a married woman. So she can't get married. V'im niseis, if she does get married, loiteitze. Now here the Gemara learns in a very complicated Gemara, which we don't have to go into, but the Gemara learns it's talking about if she married one of the witnesses that say that the husband died. She was certain that the husband died, and she married either Irving or Rabbi Kranz, who said that the husband died. So in that case, if she marries, loiteitze. Reb Nachman Reb Yaisi says even if she marries, teitze. Reb Nachman Reb Yaisi, Eimasai ani Eimer teitze. When does she have to leave? Bizman shebo edim v'ach kachnisses. That's only if the Berish and Yitz came that the husband didn't die, the husband didn't divorce her, and only after that she still got married. Aval Nisses, but if what happened is Rabbi Kranz and Irving said the husband died, and she got married then legally, because Bezdin Paskin she could get married. Aval Nisses v'ach kach bo edim harizu lo teitze. She's not allowed, then she doesn't have to leave. Even if afterwards the Eidim come and say that the husband didn't die. So we see that Bezdin doesn't reverse its decision because it would be bad for the reputation of the court. So Amalei, so we see that the Bezdin doesn't reverse its decision. So Amalei Rav Nachman said, "Ano savrei l'me'avad uvda." I thought to paskin that it should be reversed and it should be taken away from Mark once Eddie brings witnesses that it was his ancestors, and now again it's deadlock. I thought to reverse decision, but hashda sivtein at. But now that you asked this question, do you see that Bezdin doesn't reverse its decision? V'oisven Rav Hamnuna b'Surya, and Rav Hamnuna also asked this question in Surah. Lo yavdina b'ovda. I won't reverse it. I won't take it away from Mark. But at the end, he did take it away from Mark, because now Mark had witnesses that it was his ancestors and had a chazaka, and now when Eddie brings witnesses that it was his ancestors, and he had witnesses that it's chazaka, it's deadlocked again. So Nafik Avad Uvda, he went ahead and reversed the decision. Man Chazah, someone who saw it, Sabat Tavusahi biyade, that he made an error. He just said that he wasn't going to reverse it. V'loihi, and it's not why. Elam Yishim Detalia Ba'ashlei Raverve. he was depending on very, very strong ropes. In other words, he found an opinion, we'll see it's the opinion of Reb Shimon Gamliel, he found an opinion that you can reverse the decision of the court and you don't have to worry about the reputation of the court. The Tanan. What was it what he found? The Tanan, Reb Yehuda Eimer, Ein malin lekun al piyei echad. We don't elevate, if a person is not known to be a kohen, we don't elevate him to the position of kahuna, that he should be able to duchen, that he should be able to take the portions of the kahanim. We don't elevate him on the testimony of one witness. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Eimasai, when is one witness not good enough to establish his kahuna? B'makom sheyesh oyrin, when there are people questioning his kahuna. Aval b'makom she'ein oyrin, but if there's no people questioning it, malin the kahuna al pi edecha. Then comes along Reb Shimon Gamliel, and he seems to say the same thing. Reb Shimon Gamliel Eimer mishim Reb Shimon ben Aschan. Reb Shimon Gamliel says in the name of Reb Shimon, the son of the deputy, malin the kahuna al pi edecha. Now that's exactly the same thing as what Rabbi Elazar says. Reb Shimon Gamliel Hainu Rabbi Elazar. V'chi teima irur chadi kebeinayu. That the difference between them, if there's only a rumor that he's a disqualified kohen, that he was a child of a kohen marrying a grusha, for example. The difference between them is if there is a rumor from one person. Rabbi Elazar savar irur chad. Rabbi Elazar says that a error is viable even if it comes from one person. Reb Shimon Gamliel savar error trey, that's viable only if it comes from two people. That can't be, because we have a rule that we only listen to a rumor if it comes from two people. V'amar Rab Yochanan divrei hakol ein error pachas mishnai. Ella, it must be error trey. It must be a rumor of two people. So what's the machlokes between Reb Elazar and Reb Shimon Gamliel? They seem to both say that you're malin al pi eid echad. V'hacha b'may askinan, here is what we're talking about. Kigayin demachzikinan le'bavua dahai dekayinu. We assume that the father of this person is a kohen. However, v'nafika le'kala de ben grusha ben chalutza. But there is a rumor of two people that he came from a forbidden marriage, ben grusha ben chalutza, which would make him a chalal and not be able to duchen, etc. So v'achsine. So when that happened, we took him down. We took him down. We stripped him of his rights. V'asa eid echad. Then one witness came. V'amad kayinu. One witness came and said that he's a kosher kohen. And when that one witness came, since he had a chazaka before that he was a kosher kohen, and this witness is enough to discount the rumor of two people. So v'asiknei. So we reestablished his credentials. Then, v'asa beitrei, then two witnesses came, not a rumor. Then two witnesses came, v'imrei de ben grusha ben chalutza, that he is a ben grusha. And I know I have to change, Rabbi, but I'm not changing in the middle. So v'asa beitrei, then two witnesses came and said that he's a ben grusha ben chalutza. So now it's 2 against 1. We listened to the two witnesses. So now v'achsine, we demote him again. And now v'asa eid echad v'amad kayinu. And now another witness saying is a kosher kohen. Now then it would be 2 against 2. and then we would then rely on the previous chazaka that his father was a kain. Udikuli alma mitzdarfen edus. Everybody holds that we could combine the witnesses, even though one came and then another came. But the question is, once we demoted him with the two witnesses, will we re-elevate him and not worry about the disgrace of the court? And here they're arguing whether we're concerned about the reputation of the court. Rabbi Elazar holds, Kevin Dachsine, once we demoted him, loy maskinanle, we don't re-elevate him, that the court shouldn't look ridiculous. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel holds, anan achsine, we'll demote him, v'anan maskinanle, and we will then re-elevate him. We're not worried about the reputation of the court. And therefore, this was Rav Nachman's Ashlei Rav Raveh, his strong ropes, that he saw that Rav Nachman wasn't worried about the reputation of the court, and therefore, when Eddie brought two witnesses to say that he also it was his ancestors, so now once again it was deadlocked. He has witnesses that it was his ancestors, and he added 3 years, and Mark has witnesses, so we take it away from Mark, and again put it into the questionable column. Now we're just going to pause a moment over here to change the channel.